Hello everyone, welcome to SFC Markets and Finance. At the start of the year, most forecasters anticipated the Fed would cut rates several times. However, the Fed held interest rates steady. It seems the economy performed stronger than expectation. So will the Fed cut rates in the rest of the year? How will the US elections affect the world? Will China achieve its goal? We are inviting Alicia García Herrero, the Chief Economist for Asia Pacific at Natixis, to join our discussion. Hello Alicia, nice to meet you. As we are the mid-year, would you like to go over the performance of global economy in the first half year of 2024?
Yes. Well, I would say that so far so good. The American economy has remained quite strong. It is decelerating, but I think not as fast as many expected. So I would call this a soft landing so far, especially if the Fed starts cutting rates in September. Our call is still to cut September and December, in which case we think the US economy could grow around between 2 and 1.5. So it's quite a good soft landing. The European economy is growing slightly faster than last year, so it might end up the year with 0.8 or 1%. And China will probably achieve the 5% growth target. So it's kind of still a good 2024.
You mentioned the Fed may begin to cut rates in September, but the ECB cut rates for the first time in nearly 5 years in early June. So what's the logic behind these different decisions?
Well, it's a good question. You're right, because I just said that the European economy is growing more than last year, so why cut rates? The reason is very simple. Disinflation in Europe is very fast, much faster than in the US. So the inflation will basically, headline is already at target and core will very soon be at target. So it's because of the successful disinflation process.
If the Fed begins to cut rates in September, how many times will the Fed cut rates in the midterm?
Twice, September and December. And many more times next year, maybe 4 more times. So it's going to be quite good for the economy and for the new president. We don't know who that person will be, but the Fed will be indeed cutting rates. But of course, this is also because we expect this inflation to continue in the US. If this were not the case, then things could be very different. Yeah.
How will the Fed's rate cuts influence global economy?
Positively. China will be a big beneficiary also because, as you know, there's been a lot of outflows because of interest rate differential being positive for the US. This is true for Europe also. So, I think this will help, especially, put it this way, I mean, Europe and China don't necessarily need so much capital because they have current account surpluses, yeah. But some countries in the emerging world and frontier markets need capital. So if the Fed cuts rates, there will be more capital where it's needed, especially, as I said, in countries with big financing needs. So it's good news. It's good news for emerging markets. I expect emerging market assets, stock markets, etc., to perform very well.
In recent, the World Bank said global growth is stabilizing for the first time in 3 years. What's your opinion? How will global growth change this year?
Well, as mentioned, I think it will be quite good. And next year, it would probably be maybe even better, at least, if not better, stable, because I think the emerging world will go faster because lower financing costs. The US will decelerate a bit, but it will not enter a recession. So I think that sentence is right. Stabilization of growth, yeah.
2024 is a year for political elections. The EU election has already surprised the market. The US election may be the most important one in the rest of the year. What's the impact of these elections on global economy? A lot of political elections has taken place in the past 6 months. The latest one is the EU election, which the result is surprising. So how has this election influenced global economy in the first half year?
I would say the European elections have not been so surprising. If anything, the share of parliamentarians in the far right is the same, European Parliament I'm talking about. So I think the European Parliament elections are not the big news. I think the big news is France and Germany, where the share of far right has been higher, and especially France because the president has decided to call for a snap election. But the results overall are not so dramatic. But yes, for these two countries, maybe they were felt to be excessively far right. And therefore, France in particular has taken this decision. But that's all. The elections themselves are not as dramatic. Yeah.
Do you think how the election in France will influence China-France trade relation?
Yeah. Well, we don't know what's going to happen. And I also think that Macron will remain a strong cohabitation, as we say. So with the far-right government and Macron as president will make Macron's life more difficult. But Macron will remain the president. So so foreign policy is fully in the hands of Macron. So I don't think it will change massively because of this. 2027 is a different story. But for that, we need to know what the far-right ideas are about France-China relations. We don't know yet.
The data showed China maintained steady economic growth against headwinds in the first half of 2024. Economists surveyed by Bloomberg are now saying China's economy may expand 5% this year, up from the 4.9% projected in May, even as consumer spending slows. Looking ahead, how will China's economy perform? Which region will drive China's growth? So how do you think about China's economy in the first half of the year?
Well, I think China now, if you look at the latest data, May, retail sales were a bit better. So from very low 2.2 to 3 something. So it's a little bit better, but it's still below the expected growth rate, 5%. So this means consumption is still weak. Investment is at 4, which is even lower than before, fixed asset investment, also below 5. So the only thing that is growing faster than GDP growth is exports. I mean, net exports, meaning external demand. So it is very important that China stimulates consumption, because otherwise it's going to be very hard to... They will achieve the goal. I think China will achieve the goal, but you want to achieve the goal feeling relaxed that next year you can also achieve the goal, you know? And for that, I think China needs to stimulate consumption, indeed.
You know, the Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau Greater Bay Area is one of the most dynamic areas in China. How has the Greater Bay Area contributed to China's economy?
A lot. A lot. The Greater Bay Area is an amazing experiment for China because it tries to replicate, in a way, the Bay. And this is an innovation hub like the US has. And this is extremely important for China's long-term future, both because, as we know, China is decelerating structurally. It needs innovation to continue to grow. But most importantly, because the US, in a way, is containing China. We know that in some sectors, like semiconductors, so having a very innovative, high-end region like the Greater Bay Area is the way to respond. So I think it's really important for China. Yeah.
How can Guangdong, Hong Kong, and Macau deep cooperation in the future?
Yes, I mean, cooperation is increasing. very clearly, but I think Hong Kong's role in the Greater Bay Area was to provide finance, as you know. And I think this is it's becoming more difficult. If you look at the numbers, the number of foreign investors into Hong Kong is shrinking. So it's very important to keep Hong Kong as a very strong, rule-based, dynamic financial center. This is in the interest of the Greater Bay Area. So it is very, very important to keep that vibrancy of Hong Kong. Yeah.
Finally, would you like to give an outlook for China's economy?
Well, I would say that the prediction is China will have $25,000 per capita by 2035. But in the same way, it's important to know that the growth rate by 2035, with this number, is great, $25,000 per capita. The growth rate will only be 2.3%. For me, it's okay because it's the US growth rate, no problem. But I think in a way, and this is nothing wrong, I call it the force of gravity, because this always happens in every economy. It happened in South Korea, happened in Japan. But you need to accept that. You need to know this is going to happen, to prepare. And I think this is something I would say the prediction is China will need to get used to lower growth. It's okay not to grow so fast, but you need to accept it. Slowly but steadily, you will become richer. You have become richer, but growth will not be 6%, 7%, never again. And that's okay. That's okay.
All right, thank you, Alicia. Bye. As China is on the way to high-quality development, China's economy may not grow as fast as before, but it will grow steadily. And like Alicia says, China's citizens will become richer. That's all for today's show. Thank you for watching. See you.